What are some of the earliest recollections you have as a child? How far back can you remember?
Sometime between when I was 2 and 3 years old and lived in Portland, Maine at Fort Preble, Portland, Maine. I can remember being very cold. It was during the winter, you know, there's snow winter. We were upstairs and there was a landing out in front, and I can remember the round stove being told how cold it was. And I can remember going out to get some socks that had been washed for my father and put outside where it'd be in, you know, under a roof type porch to dry.
Where was this? This is in an army fort?
Portland, Maine, Fort Preble.
Uh-huh.
Portland, Maine.
How old would you have been? 2, 3,
I
four?
would be somewhere around 3 years old.
Uh-huh. So we're talking about 1911, 1912.
Oh no, 7 and 3 would be about 1910. See, I was born on February 1907, probably 9 or 10, somewhere in there. Somebody stole my gal. Somebody stole my pal. Somebody came and took her away. They didn't even say they were leaving. Those kisses I adore. I miss them more and more. Oh, gee, I know that she would come to me if she could see her broken-hearted, lonesome pal. Somebody stole my gal. Oh, take it away. That's when the trombones or the clarinetties or somebody hoops it up.
Now, 1910 was about the time that the Wright brothers got off the ground and into the air with their airplane.
Yes.
Do you recall, as you were probably too young then to really remember that?
My first knowledge and real thought about airplanes was about 1914 or 15 at the old San Francisco Fairgrounds, which the grounds had, it was several blocks of solid lawn, and it was within walking distance of where I lived. And a man by the name of Art Smith used to fly in and out of there in a biplane that he had. And also another man by the name of Lincoln Beechey flew from there, both Art Smith and Lincoln Beechey. And my father and I were coming home from the San Francisco Seals ballpark, and we had walked from where we lived on Octavia in what you'd call the Marina District, just above it, straight over the hill and to the ballpark, because to take a streetcar, which we would have to do, we'd have to go way downtown and then come way back up and then go way out, whereas we could walk over about us and not do much more walking than we'd have to anyway. Well, as we were coming home, the ground raises as a hill in front of us, so we're looking up and we can't help but see Lincoln Beechey as he's flying up there. And all of a sudden he goes down, and he went all the way down. Then where our vision was barred, he kept going. And so when we got up over the hill and down home, which was near, we found out that he had fallen. His plane had fallen, and as he fell, he went down near the docks at the foot of, not Octavia, but a block or so over in the water of San Francisco Bay, and he hooked, his plane hooked on the anchor of the Army Transport Sumner.
Did he survive?
No, he would have, because the nose of his ship went down into the mud and stuck. And he drowned. He was not killed by the impact.
You were grew up in San Francisco as a boy.
Well, I came to San Francisco when I was, let's see, about 5 or 6 years old.
I see. Now that wasn't too long after the great earthquake there.
The earthquake was around my birth date, around 1905 or 6, a year before I was born, right, or several months.
Were they still feeling the impact there? Were the people
No,
still
but you could
talking
no,
about it?
no, yeah, they were talking, and you could see damages that had occurred to the homes in various places. Next door to our home, family home at 644 2nd Avenue, the house there, a cottage, had been damaged, and the foundation was still left there in parts of the house. And on Van Ness Avenue at St. Bridget's Church, where I went to church, that's near Van Ness and Broadway, it's on the corner. You could see some effects in the street where it cracked open wide. Oh, the heir to the Austrian throne was assassinated. And then it has photographs here, principals in the tragedy of the dual empire.
Of course, that led to the beginning of World War I. What do you recall about that?
What happened, as I recall, there was the assassination, which was caused by a Serb, I believe, or somebody from Serbia,
Where were you at this time?
San Francisco.
How old?
Um,
About 10 years old by then?
no,
A little younger.
younger, yeah.
Did you understand what was going on? Did your
Oh,
father have
yes.
to go fight, didn't he?
Yes, my father went overseas. We came down here to San Diego when we went in. He came down here and opened Camp Kearney and then went overseas. That's when we went in.
Did your dad write you letters?
Oh yes, we didn't hear, my mother didn't get any allotment, and we didn't hear from my father or anybody or anything for over 5 months. And it was very, very difficult. My mother, I didn't know what you called it then, was going or getting into the menopause, I guess, which probably had been hastened and aggravated by the stress. And we were moved down here, Pop opened Camp Kearney, went across the country picking up.
Was it Camp Kearney or Camp Kearney?
Pronounce it as you'd like. They
But
called
that's
it
the
Camp
same
Kearney at
as
that
Kearney
time.
Mesa.
Yes.
Same fellow.
Yes,
What was his name?
same thing.
Stephen Watts Kearney?
Yes. And my dad opened that place. And there's a family here that were wholesale grocers, not held. There was a councilman, I forget, it was across the street from me,
Now, what was your dad's rank at that time?
captain. He had come up from the ranks. And, but he was treated as a colonel, same as Eberwald. The army was only 25,000, the regular army.
Where did you and your mother live while he was away?
We lived in, well, what happened was he moved us down here to San Diego, and we lived at 2330 First Street in a flat. The upstairs
Army
story.
housing?
No, it was owned by Claude Woolman, an undertaker.
You wouldn't remember how much the rent was?
$25 a month.
I see. Did you have a refrigerator?
Oh, I don't remember about all that. We had everything you could have then. It was as
Your
good
mom
as you
did the
could.
laundry with a washboard?
No, my mother, they had some, I don't remember the laundry facilities, whatever there was, and she had help. We got help.
I see. What kind of food did your mother make for you?
Oh, my mother was very capable, she was a gourmet chef, qualified, highly qualified, in many things. She had been exceedingly well trained every way.
What was her name?
Her maiden name?
Yeah.
Pauline Feldman, Feldmann. And she took the name Agnes when she was confirmed. So Pauline
Where did she grow up, in
Agnes-
Indiana?
Mount Vernon, Indiana. That's in the southwest corner of Indiana, right across on the Ohio River,
And who
across
were her
from
parents?
Kentucky.
What did her father do?
Her father, he was an immigrant coming over here, and he became a barber.
Was he German?
And then, from either, her mother, I guess, was from Baden, and her father from Bavaria.
Do you recall your grandparents?
Yes, I met them. He was sitting in a chair, was terminal illness, but he was pleasant when I met him. He had a mustache, and he had, I guess he'd gotten a trade on a riverboat or something, and was barber, and then he bought and owned the building, and then he had 5 chairs and 5 barbers. He didn't do all the barbering, but to begin with, he did it himself. He's typical American from the bottom up.
So America went to war with Germany in 1916, I believe.
Yes, America went to war as an ally of England, as near as and France, as near as I could ascertain. Wilhelm Hohenzollern was the emperor of the German Empire then.
Well, what did your father do during the war, during World War I?
World War I?
Did you go to France?
Well, my father, during World War I, my father had just retired from active service in San Francisco. World War I, he was reactivated, ordered down to San Diego, where he opened Camp Kearny on Kearny Mesa. And he put the 40th Division in there. That is, he was there when the 40th Division came. Then he left there when that was all ready to take care of itself. And he went across the United States and picked up the Yankee Division, which he took overseas. And then when he got overseas, why, he was one of the 3. There was a 25-mile front, and he was one of the 3 men to take care to see that the front lines were well served with whatever their come up was, whether it's personnel or food or ammunition or what. The other 2 were, they were all 3 captains. My father, they would be the equivalent of colonels in their service, but Captain Swanson, that's Gloria Swanson, the actress' father, and Captain Eberwald. And Captain Eberwald they were all old soldiers, and Eberwald I had known as a boy. And when Pop was on serving the front lines, what would happen is the person on duty at the time, I told you there were 3, Captain Eberwald and Captain Swanson, Gloria Swanson's father. Well, when Pop was bringing up a convoy of trucks, and at that time he would have been riding in one of the lead, if not the leading truck with the driver. And what happened, that's what he was. And what happened was, apparently they knew, the opposition, the Germans knew that this was going on, or could have been, so they had the range fixed pretty well. And they dropped a shell right close nearby. And when the shell dropped, it exploded. And it blew up blew the trucks, so they couldn't operate more. And the one Pop was in was one of those that was stopped. I think there was one ahead or behind 1 or 2 or so where there was more, it was nearer the hit. But anyway, Pop's iron hat was found acquired about 60 feet from the truck where he was. And I don't know where he went. He never did talk about any of those things. Anything I heard about him, including when he was a point man at the fall of Peking in the Boxer Rebellion, I was told by other people that were with him. He wasn't even present when they told. He never talked about anything like that.
What happened after the war? Did your father come directly home to San Diego?
No, my father remained in France, and he was in France for quite a long period of time. I don't remember now how long.
How'd your mother get by? It must have been lonely.
It was terrible. It would have been much nicer if they'd left us in San Francisco. However, she made the best out of things. About that time, she apparently was going through the menopause, and I would go with her down to Grant Hotel where they would give her, and I would take one, the same thing, steam baths, or you could get dry heat bath or steam bath, and then put you on a table and rub you down with salt, and then rinse you off, and then rub you down with either eucalyptus oil or olive oil. And this was, my mother was taking those treatments, so take me along, I'd get the same. Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks are secretly married here. Now this is Wednesday morning, March 31st, 1920, and it doesn't have the location of the newspaper. Entertainment about the time I was growing up consisted of actual Keith Albee Orpheum stage shows, local stage shows, and then the motion pictures were coming in, and they had been a little before me, definitely called the Nickelodeon or whatever, the cheap flash things. In my day, it was not bad. I think it used to cost us about a nickel, 5 cents to go in. I was in San Francisco when I first had knowledge of the movies, and I lived in what was called Cow Hollow then. It's near the Golden Gate as you come in. I forget what they call it now, but I'll think of it later. And Union Street and I lived on Octavia, a little bit out from Van Ness. And the motion picture shows, there were 2 of them on Union Street that we could go to. The better theaters, larger ones, were down in the city near Market Street.
What sort of movies did they have?
Well, the movies were just typical motion pictures.
Action films?
Yes.
Who would you go see the movies
and
with?
The great comedian was called John Bunny then. And that's the oldest that I can remember of the comedians. And I can't remember the name. He had been a great stage man, was a motion picture idol then. I can't remember their names now. And the kids could go for 5 cents, and that's about all there was there. Legitimate stage was downtown.
Now you said that when Mary Pickford was divorced, that it caused quite a furor among the public.
No, it didn't cause a furor. It disparaged or downgraded her. A divorce was not looked upon favorably. It was sort of a
scandalous.
Yeah, trashy. Something's wrong.
Who was her husband?
Her husband had been. I can't think of his name. He was a very capable, able Irish American actor.
Was that before Fairbanks?
Yes, before Fairbanks. She divorced him and then married Douglas Fairbanks. I can't think of his name, but he had a brother. He and his brother were both actors.
When did you start playing football?
In high school.
St. Mary's or
No.
St. Augustine's?
San Diego High School,
Uh-huh.
and then St. Augustine's.
What position?
I was probably the slowest as well as the lightest, which is strange. They put me at center because they had too many players that were far superior as far as running, speed, and so forth.
What was the big challenge at playing center? You had to snap the ball and then
Well,
come
you
off
have
the
to
block.
snack the ball, and also you have to block or handle the line on defense.
Did you ever have more than you could handle there?
Absolutely. When they brought a man who had been an All-American at one of the Pennsylvania universities, and in those days you'd be an All-American 4 years there and then go over to one of the academies. He'd gone to Naval Academy and for 4 more years, and they brought him out here after, not directly from there, but anyhow, brought him out here to coach at Naval Training Station. And so he brought, we used to scrimmage, San Diego, or St. Augustine scrimmaged against the Naval Training Station. We couldn't get any high schools to play against us because they were all in leagues, and it would do them no good to win, to beat us, but to lose to us would do them great damage. So it was good reason for them not. But we would play against the Navy teams and the Marines and anybody else, junior colleges. So this Navy coach that came out apparently checked things out, found out that I was the center, and that I played defensive center as well as offensive, and that, well, what he did was he would run them right straight through center. And I had taken, the only time that I can recall offhand, having my dad come down to see us play at the stadium, and they just poured them through. There'd be 2 or 3 men leading the ball carrier, and there's no way that I alone could stop them.
They just slow them down?
And we weren't trained. I could try to take time out, but we weren't trained to meet that sort of a situation. Furthermore, if we had met it, why then they could use it deceptively if they were able. I don't know if they'd have been able to. But anyway, that was a very sad experience I had.
Who was your coach?
My coach was, oh geez, I know his name as well as my own. He was a baseball pitcher from San Diego High School that went up to the big leagues and then came back down and had a French name. I can't think of it offhand. Corriere, Corriere.
Now, who was Slip Madigan?
Slip Madigan was at St. Mary's.
I see.
That's altogether different.
So you played football for San Diego High School, and you took those talents with you and continued to develop them in college.
Well, yeah, see.
Did you play center in college?
No, my mother, I got out of high school in 3.5 years in May of 25. And I had an appointment to the Army Academy, West Point, and my mother had a cancer of the breast and an operation, and they told us she'd only last at the most a year, maybe less. And so I had gone up with the San Diego football team to Long Beach to play, and when I got back, my dad told me that's what the doctor had said. And so I just stayed home and took care of my mom. And
How long did it take her to...
she died in 1926. In 1927, I went to St. Mary's.
So your mom took about a year?
Well, she took about a little less than a year to go on that thing.
Was it tough for you?
Oh, I stayed with her. It was tough for me to lose her because she was awfully close to me.
Was it painful
I didn't
for her?
realize-
Back then, when someone had cancer, there wasn't much they could do for them.
No, that's the trouble. Nothing they could do. And she suffered, and I used to give her shots of morphine.
Was your